All signs point to this as the Minnesota Wild's top reporter Michael Russo links the Vancouver Canucks to the young budding star by the Minnesota Wilds in Marco Rossi, and goes as far as saying the Vancouver Canucks are very interested in acquiring him heading into next season. We're going to break down everything you need to know on Marco Rossi, what to expect at him, what his contract may look like, a possible trade, and so much more. So you're not going to miss any of this. But before we get into that, if you're part of the 66% watching this and you haven't hit that sub button yet and you want to stay up to date on everything to do around your Vancouver Canucks, including prospects, rumors, reports, trades, Abbotsford, anything you need to know around this team, you can find it right here at Canucks Digest. So go down and hit that free sub button. It helps us out a bunch, and we love seeing the community grow. Well, let's just hop straight into the first topic today, where we do know, and before we get into everything Michael Russo said, the Vancouver Canucks desperately need to get deeper at the center position. Last season, we've seen the Vancouver Canucks enter the season with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller headlining their top two lines as their centers. After moving on from Miller, including getting Filip Hronek back, the Canucks are stuck with Elias Pettersson, Filip Hronek, Teddy Blueger, Neil Zaman, and Achiratu if he decides to return. We know Pius Suter is someone that is in the open market, could hit it as early as July 1st. The Vancouver Canucks need to bolster this, and this is where they have a perfect opportunity. Now, going into Russo, we've seen a quote coming from him, and I'm going to link the article down below. And he said, I definitely hear from really good sources that Vancouver really likes Marco and is very interested in Marco. Now, Marco Rossi, I've touched on him before, but I'm going to go through it again. This is a young forward that could join this Vancouver Canucks team and immediately fill the void on that second line center, which would make this a lot deeper. With Elias Pettersson, Marco Rossi, and Filip Hronek down the middle, this team looks a lot better when they can roll these three lines with Teddy Blueger as a fourth line center. Now, going into Marco Rossi, 60 points this year with the Minnesota Wild, a career high in goals and assists, 24 goals. The biggest thing with Marco Rossi, a couple seasons ago, health issues was a big concern, but since then we've seen back-to-back 82 game seasons, including back-to-back 20 goals, 3 points in his 6 playoff games, and believe it or not, this was on the fourth line. We've seen the Minnesota Wild translate their game a little differently, slid Marco Rossi down to the fourth line to have 4 complete lines, and he still produced at half a point per game during the span in the 6 games with Minnesota. Now, 23 years old, yes, a bit of a smaller frame, 5'9", 182 pounds, but Marco Rossi plays a little bigger than his size. I mean, 5'9" is not the biggest player, but he is very good. I mean, looking into more Marco Rossi stuff, he is an RFA. With the contract, Scotia Stats, shout out to them. That'll be linked down below as well. You can check them out on social media. They have him projected at a $6 million cap hit on a 4-year extension. Now, Michael Russo and the rest of Minnesota has made it very clear that it seems like a 7x7 is what Rossi's camp wants to sign when going into this season. So 7x7 to lock up a 23-year-old until he's 30. If he continues to progress, if he continues to be a 20 goal scorer, this could turn into a steal of the contract and look perfectly on the Canucks, not only next season, but for the 7 years going into this contract. I mean, the biggest thing is we've seen him being the second leading scorer on the Minnesota Wild. Now, yes, Kaprizov only played 41 games. He would be miles ahead of both Eovaldi and Rossi, but still a very productive season from a 23-year-old. 24 goals, which was third on the team. We can see 60 points second, but really third if we've seen Kaprizov play a full year. Rossi is a complete package that can come in and help accelerate this Canucks timeline. We know the biggest thing with the Vancouver Canucks, and something they need to add, is scoring with Brock Boeser around. Marco Rossi is a guy that can drop those 20 goals for you. And the biggest thing as well with the Vancouver Canucks wanting to keep Quinn Hughes, they need to keep adding talent to this roster, and Rossi could fill in that void completely. The big thing is, looking at Rossi, yes, not the best face-off. You can see on the right side the face-off percentages all hovering just below 50% over the past 3 seasons. This is something you can work on. He was an all-rookie team. He made 6th in Calder voting just last season. The biggest thing with Rossi is, yes, you need to work on his face-offs. Yes, He needs to be a tiny bit more physical, but the Canucks would give him the opportunity to get a solidified top six role, which he doesn't have with Minnesota, hence why they're looking to move on from him. They want to relocate their money. And now, before we get into a trade package, this is a fit that I would very much enjoy. Canucks fans, I want to hear your thoughts down below. I know the first thing everyone's going to say is he's too small. He's not Canadian. But the biggest thing is, Marco Rossi is a player that can come in and make an impact, and that is something the Vancouver Canucks have at center, but not to that extent. Filip Hronek could turn into this, but the injury concerns are something to be worried. But Canucks fans, 4-minute pitcher Elias Pettersson and Filip Hronek on this center group, and then you add in Marco Rossi onto the second. I think it would be awesome, but let me know your thoughts down below. But the biggest thing is, looking at this, there's two options with this. The Vancouver Canucks can trade for him, and like Russo said, does that mean a trade? Does that mean an offer sheet? No, one or the other. Who knows? Now, looking at offer sheets, we know Rossi is an RFA going into July 1st. The Canucks can offer him a contract. They would have to give up compensation. With the compensation, the Vancouver Canucks can only offer him between $2.3 million and $4.6. You can see them in the bottom row there on that section. They can't go above the 4.6 range, as you need to give up a first and a third. But the thing is, with the Canucks, if they want to go out and reacquire the third-round pick, they do have San Jose's third-round pick that they can send off in a trade. This is going to be a higher pick, so you could reacquire your third-round pick plus more compensation, maybe future considerations. He's been thrown around the league quite a bit, but this is an option for the Canucks to go out and give up a first and a third. This would be a 2026 first and third, but a lot of options are pointing and suggesting the Vancouver Canucks could go as far as moving on from the 15th overall pick, putting in a prospect on top of this as well. I mean, looking at the roster, we know with the Canucks, they are depleted at forward at the moment. Minnesota has a logjam at defenseman, so this doesn't seem like a great trade candidate when it comes player for player. But it does get interesting when you look at the Minnesota native, Brock Boeser. Now listen, I want to make this very clear before everyone goes in the comments that says Mark hates Boeser. I am far from hating Boeser. I want Brock Boeser to return. But if Brock Boeser looks at Patrik Allvin, Jim Rutherford, and says, hey, I am leaving the team, I'm heading to Minnesota, I'm going to sign with them on July 1st. This gives the opportunity for the Canucks and the Minnesota Wild to work out a trade, a Minnesota native. We know what Brock Boeser can do, but if a sign and trade happens, they could entice them by looking at the Minnesota Wild and say, hey, the cap hit's going to drop. We'll sign him to an 8-year extension. We'll send him your way. But we want Rossi coming the other way. Of course, you'd have to throw in the 15th overall pick. You still have to throw in a B-level prospect or maybe an A. I would not move on from Jonathan Lekkerimäki at all. I know he hasn't been having the best playoff run with the Abbotsford Canucks, but when looking at the Canucks prospects, ranked, I believe, 15 to 17 on a lot of boards, you want to continue bolstering this and moving on from your top guys to bring in Marco Rossi. Might not be the biggest or best idea, I should say. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? Would you do a sign and trade if Brock Boeser looked at you and said, hey, I will not be returning? This does add a bit of value on Minnesota's side. You bring in a young 23-year-old center that can continue to grow and make an immediate impact with this team. Yes, losing the 15th overall pick sucks, but you get someone that was a former lottery pick, 9th overall, that can immediately impact the roster instead of bringing in a draft pick that doesn't impact the roster at the very moment. I know there's a lot to take in. If you made it this far, shout out to you guys. Go down and leave a comment down there and say, let's go Rossi, let's go Pie, whatever you want to put down there. I love reading through it, but that'd be it for this episode. Go down and leave a comment on everything I spoke on. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. I'll be back with another episode, or Griffin will be back, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark Pie, and take care, Canucks fans.